Welcome to the University of Kansas School of Law's Career Service Office Boot Camp. Today, we will discuss how to prepare reference lists and letters of recommendation. Our objective for this presentation is to prepare you to supply employers with the references they need in a professional way. We will discuss who to use as references, how to ask them, what your submission should look like, and how to submit them. Most frequently, employers are looking for a reference list. Judicial clerkships are the exception. They usually ask for letters of recommendation. So, as a general rule, unless the job posting specifically asks for letters, you should plan to submit a reference list. Also, many job postings don't list a specific number of references they want you to supply. If no number is given, use 3 references as your default. Since reference lists are most common, let's start there. One of the most common questions students have about references is who they should list. First, be sure to use only people who know you personally and can speak specifically about your work ethic, knowledge, and/or professional skills. If you happen to be lifelong friends with a Supreme Court justice, that's a great person to list. But avoid the temptation of listing prestigious people if they barely know you. Typically, a potential employer benefits from hearing from a law professor who can speak to your command of legal concepts or skills. Employers also care deeply about your work ethic, so consider using a current or former work supervisor. And finally, listing an undergraduate advisor or coach can help establish a track record for a commitment to your studies or to a team. Another important thing to keep in mind is that you should ask people before you list them as references and give out their contact information. Remember to ask before you submit your application materials. How you ask is important too. The best advice I can give is that you should contact them in the way you typically communicated with them. If you commonly texted with your boss while you worked for her, then it's probably okay to ask if she'll be a reference via text. Otherwise, consider using email or giving them a call. Additionally, you should include details about the kind of job you are applying for. This will help the recommender choose relevant comments in the event that they are contacted. If you are emailing to ask permission to use someone as a reference, consider also attaching the job description if it is available. Let's take a look at a reference list. Here we have a reference list for Cameron Cruz, our CSO bootcamp fictitious student. Notice that the header is the same as the one you used on your resume and your cover letter. Notice that there is a title for this document, References, and that it is centered and bolded and perhaps even underlined. The references are lined up, numbered, and positioned in a way that makes good use of space. Each reference includes the name, title, organization affiliated with, email address, and phone number. Be sure you are including updated contact information. Each reference also includes a note about how you know the person. Now, you don't have to use this exact layout for your reference list, but this is the information that should be included, and the finished product should be pleasing to the eye. There are lots of ways to submit your reference list. For example, when you are applying directly by emailing your materials to someone, you should attach your reference list as a separate document. When you apply through Simplicity, references are added under the category Other Documents. If you're having trouble finding a way to upload or include your reference list, you can always make it the second page of your resume so that the employer will be sure to see it. On to letters of recommendation. As we previously stated, requests for these are pretty rare, except that most judges require them when you apply for judicial clerkships. Writing a thoughtful letter of recommendation takes a lot of time and effort. For that reason, you may want to ask your recommender to write a general letter that you can use whenever needed. If you plan to apply for judicial clerkships, you might also want a specific letter geared specifically for those jobs. Some appropriate topics for a judicial clerkship letter of rec might be your demonstrated professionalism, candor, discretion, and writing abilities, as well as the typical topics of work ethic and knowledge. With regard to whom you should ask to write the letters, the same choices as previously discussed for references are still good candidates. Here, it is important to also think about whether the person will write something professionally and error-free. Law professors are usually excellent recommenders. When to ask is especially important with letters of recommendation. They're a lot of work, and some people, like law professors, are asked to write a lot of these. For that reason, you should be respectful and give the recommender plenty of advance notice. You may also have to remind your recommender and track down the letter. Give yourself 2 weeks to get a letter just to be safe. Even better, ask for letters when your course or employment concludes so that the person has fresh recollection of your attributes and abilities. For letters of recommendation, it is best to make the request via email. Email works best because you will be including specific instructions on how to submit the letter or get it to you, and because you should include the job description to help your recommender choose the topics to write about. Additionally, you should consider including a sample letter. Write a letter that talks about your skills and abilities that are relevant to the job. Use examples from specific projects you worked on or interactions you had with this recommender. Make it a good sample, your dream letter of recommendation, because many recommenders will use your example and just tweak it. For that reason, you should be certain that the sample letters you give to different people are different in structure, use different examples, and discuss different strengths. You don't want all your letters to sound the same. When it comes to letters of recommendation, there is not proper formatting. Each of your recommenders will have their own style for writing letters. If the letter is poorly written, isn't specific or personal, or isn't as flattering as you would like, consider asking someone else and not using the letter. Submitting letters of recommendation can be confusing. Judges, for example, might ask that your recommenders send the letters directly to their chambers via United States Postal Service. They may also use Oscar, which has its own process for supplying letters. And other employers will have still other guidelines. The important thing is to follow instructions, provide clear instructions for your recommenders, and to ask if you are unsure. You can ask us in the CSO, or you can call the employer or judge's clerk. Thank you for joining us for CSO Bootcamp. Be sure to look for additional KU Law CSO recordings on other topics related to applying and interviewing for jobs, as well as networking, dressing for success, etiquette, job searches, and many others. Rock chalk.